Welcome to hour number 2, the morning after, live right here on Sports Grid on this Thursday in Sirius XM channel 159. That is the home for Sports Grid Radio on Sirius XM. You're also watching all across the Sports Grid network, which now includes Fubo TV. Thank you for joining us here. All across Sports Grid Nation, let's ride. I am Ben Stevens. Tons to get to here in hour number 2. We'll go across the sports business landscape with our sports professor, Rick Horrow. Tons of TV deals to get you caught up on in college football in the latest in the Live Golf drama against the PGA Tour. Then we'll talk college football on the actual gridiron with our Sports Grid CFB analyst, Joe Lisi, in the middle of hour 2, and we'll end things out with a preview of the Field of Dreams game tonight. Is this heaven? No. It's Iowa. Burt Murray, our MLB insider, joins us to break down everything across Major League Baseball. We begin here in hour number 2 with some more NBA offseason news surrounding one Kevin Durant. Now, I will say this with a small caveat. Nothing has really changed. We're just getting additional reporting about what KD might or might not want. Of course, earlier this week, we brought you that feud between Kevin Durant and general manager Sean Marks and head coach Steve Nash, and Kevin Durant making his ultimatum of pick me or management, and Joe Tsai, the Brooklyn Nets owner, saying that he has the utmost confidence in his GM and head coach, whatever that means right now. But Kevin Durant still reiterated that trade request to the Nets owner in Joe Tsai. And according to KD, at least from SNY's Ian Begley, right now, KD's 2 preferred trade destinations, the Boston Celtics, where apparently Kevin Durant wants to play alongside the reigning defensive player of the year in Marcus Smart, and he also would be open to a reunion with James Harden on the Philadelphia 76ers. Some additional reporting this morning that Robert Williams, Bobby Will, as we know him, is reportedly off limits in those trade talks if anything is to happen between Brooklyn and Boston right now. So again, what exactly does this mean for Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn Nets at this moment? Well, we'll take a look at the Eastern Conference odds right now because the Nets are right alongside the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Boston Celtics remain the favorites in the Eastern Conference to win this conference for a second straight season, and they are also the favorites, are the C's, for an NBA championship. But right now in the East, plus 210 for Boston, and you'll see Philly and Brooklyn with the same exact price alongside the Miami Heat, tied for the third best odds at plus 700. So what does it mean for right now? We're getting additional reporting, but nothing has actually happened yet. What is happening is the final week of the regular season in the W. And the WNBA, with only a few games left of this regular season, the final spots in the postseason all up for grabs. 4 teams after last night's action now tied for the final 2 spots in the playoffs. All 4 teams at 14-20 straight up. And they played each other last night, or at least a couple of them did. We start with the New York Liberty against the Dallas Wings, the second of back-to-back games between these two in Dallas. On Monday, the Wings won to clinch that 6th spot in the postseason. It was their 5th straight victory. Last night, the Liberty exact their revenge. 91-73 the final, but New York, based on tiebreakers right now, still outside that postseason picture. Dallas already clinched that 6th spot. They didn't really care about last night per se, and New York cashes on the money line as a plus 140 underdog and a 3.5-point dog on the road in Dallas. Quickly, a welcome to our Sports Grid radio audience here. The second hour of the morning after, live all across the grid. Sirius XM channel 159 and all of our terrestrial radio affiliates as well. I am Ben Stevens. So the New York Liberty, 91-73 last night. A win on the road in Dallas. New York improves their record to 14-20, which is the same exact record as the Minnesota Lynx, the Atlanta Dream, and the Phoenix Mercury. All 4 teams tied right now with that same straight-up record, all battling for the final 2 spots in the postseason in the WNBA. And the Minnesota Lynx and the Phoenix Mercury played each other last night. Entering the game, Phoenix had a half-game lead for the 7th playoff spot. But the Mercury shorthanded right now, losing Diana Taurasi for the rest of the regular season. They were a half game up for that 7th spot and only trailed the Wings by a half game for that 6th and final spot as well. But the Mercury lose at home last night. Minnesota actually booked as a favorite, laying 3.5 against the Mercury, and they get the win last evening in Phoenix, 86-77, covering as a 3.5-point favorite. So again, we have 4 teams now with just 2 or 3 games left in the regular season. The regular season action comes to a close on Sunday, and there are 4 teams all tied at 40-20 straight up, battling for those final 2 postseason spots. Now let's look at the WNBA championship odds, because we've seen a move at the top of this board this past week. Finally, the Chicago Sky booked as the favorites, the reigning WNBA champions, and a 1-game advantage over the Aces for that number 1 seed in the WNBA postseason. And the Sky are now the favorites on the FanDuel Sportsbook at plus 195, but only 15 cents ahead of Las Vegas. A very tight gap right there. But look at the drop-off from the 5 best odds, ending with the Washington Mystics at 8-1, to where Dallas is in that 6th spot, both in the standings and in the odds board. The Wings at 45-1, and it's an even further drop-off to Atlanta at 130-1. What should that tell you? That maybe these 4 teams battling for the final 2 WNBA playoff spots, once they get to the postseason, who knows what they'll be able to compete with. More of the morning after, up next.
Attention! Do you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS? If so, you may qualify for the IRS Fresh Start program, so you won't have to make any payments to the IRS. That's right. If you qualify for the IRS's Fresh Start program, you won't make any IRS payments once you are accepted. Once you are in the IRS Fresh Start program, they must stop all harassing and threatening collection activities. Call Tax Relief today now at 800-382-1870 to see if you qualify. Again, 800-382-1870.
Non-attorney spokesperson. This is a paid advertisement for legal services sponsored by Nightline Legal. Cases assigned on a random basis to participating law firms. Attention parents. If your child was born premature and later diagnosed with necrotizing enterocolitis, also known as NEC, call right now. You may be entitled to financial compensation. Certain types of baby formulas have been linked to an increased risk of newborns developing NEC, a severe and potentially fatal intestinal illness that oftentimes requires surgery. If your child was born premature or at a low birth weight and later diagnosed with necrotizing enterocolitis, the baby formula your child was fed may be to blame, and you may be entitled to significant compensation from the manufacturer. Call right now to find out if you qualify. Don't be a victim. Get the help you deserve. There are time deadlines to file a claim, so don't wait. Call right now.
Call 1-800-958-5083. That's 1-800-958-5083.
I'm calling in regards about my mother, and I'm here, and I just want to thank you because it saved my mother's life yesterday. And I'd like to know the names of the people that came in and saved her. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
With Life Alert, one touch of a button can get you help fast.
For a free Life Alert brochure, call 1-800-450-0515. 1-800-450-0515.
Are you over 50? Would you like to get up to 33% more income in retirement? Then call now for this free book, Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers, from a leading financial firm on maximizing your income in retirement. That's right, free. This free book reveals little-known secrets about annuity strategies in simple-to-understand terms that will help you make the right choices before buying an annuity. And it's free. Call right now for your free book, and as a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report. We researched over 1,200 annuities and summarized the rates and benefits of annuities from financially strong insurers. Again, that's Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers and a free annuity rate report, both absolutely free, for calling Annuity General today. Supplies are limited. Call now.
Call 800-830-7360. That's 800-830-7360.
back from a summer vacation in Scotland on the locks out there where he was at the old course for the Open Championship, traveling around Europe, making his way through a variety of NFL training camps. Our sports professor, Rick Horrow, joins us once again here live on this Thursday on the morning after. Rick, what did you learn from your adventures throughout these summer months?
Hey, wait a minute. First of all, let's burn this tape. IRS, I was summer. There's no vacation involved. Every time I'm on a golf course, I'm inspecting for seedlings and whether we can transport them to the U.S. And I was thinking about the live golfers that might want to play on those courses. Here's my tip, okay? Don't pack anything important. If you value underwear, don't pack it. And the other thing is, if you want to fly, don't change planes. Because even with the industry as screwed up as it is today, you're likely, if you're going to put it on one plane, they're not going to lose it by the time they take it off the same plane. Changing planes, another matter. 8 days in a row without a suitcase. Aer Lingus, get your legal department ready. I'm coming right after you for all of the shirts I bought. And as you know, I need to change shirts 3 or 4 times a day, especially U.S. Open or Carnoustie shirts, right?
I mean, listen, you do so much content for the Sports Grid Network, so many sports business minutes, making appearances across a variety of programs. I actually think your new clothes look pretty good. Clean, crisp, and by no means was I saying you weren't working on your travels and your adventures, just that you were out on the world, soaking up all of those moments. But, Rick, we need you back here because throughout these off-season and summer months in college football, one of the main topics, of course, has been conference realignment. And as I have tried to share with our viewers and listeners of the morning after, the driver of the bus for conference realignment is TV contracts and those huge media rights deals that we are seeing for the SEC and, of course, now for the Big Ten. Their current contract comes to a close at the end of 2022, so the Big Ten has already begun negotiations for its next TV deal. Its main partner is going to be Fox, but also CBS and NBC now in the fold as well. ESPN, that relationship with the Big Ten from a TV rights perspective apparently has come to a close. So, Rick, big money coming the way of the Big Ten Conference. What is your takeaway from all of these reports we have seen about the Big Ten's next TV deal upcoming?
I just did a Sports Business Minute on that. It's coming up tomorrow, so I'm not giving it away. Next? Okay. No, I won't do that. So, listen, not okay.
A small preview. Small preview. Give the people something more that they can want, but give us a little bit of insight. Make some sense of it for us, please.
All right, here's a little bit of insight. Kevin Warren, the commissioner of the Big Ten, good guy, lawyer, ran the Minnesota Vikings, good friend. He is astute. He's a student of the game. He will milk, the wrong word. He will leverage as much money out of the networks as possible. How? Well, specifically, is it going to be $1 billion deal? How does NBC and CBS come into this? What are the windows that are open now? Is there a Fox noon game like there has been, and then a 3:30 CBS and an NBC primetime? Maybe. What does this do as far as a ripple? Well, ESPN doesn't like to lose, so they don't lose a lot. But what does this do? This opens up the big, the Pac-12, Pac-10, Pac-8, Pac-2, whatever is going to be ultimately there, because the window, frankly, for a 10:30 game on the East Coast is great, and ESPN is going to hop into that. What does this do to Notre Dame? Does NBC bring Notre Dame into the Big Ten fold as part of a massive TV deal? And then is we going to look at conference realignment as a function of the two biggies? The AFC is the SEC and ACC, and the NFC is the Pac-2 and the Big Ten. And the bottom line together is they're driven by two big contracts. The Power 5 may become the Power 2. How's that for a preview?
I would say it was a really good preview, and it hit on a bunch of things that I'm going to ask you right now, but there seems to be at least a figurative line in the sand. The SEC's partnership with ESPN and Disney controlling one side of conference realignment. The Big Ten's partnership with Fox and bring in CBS and NBC as well, driving the other side, and we have these two super conferences moving forward in college football. This is the reality of where we are in college football and college sports in general, and what might be coming in the future landscape of collegiate athletics. But first, let's start with the TV partner that will no longer be with the Big Ten. ESPN has broadcast Big Ten football games. ABC and ESPN have broadcast Big Ten football games for more than 4 decades. But based on reports, that relationship is no more. Rick, do you believe it's significant that ESPN will not broadcast Big Ten football games moving forward?
Well, you know, the ESPN coverage of hockey before they regained the rights is a testament to the fact that if they don't cover it, it doesn't exist. So I'm not sure they could get away with not reporting any Big Ten scores. But certainly, you know, does game day ever go to a Big Ten town again? I don't know. Does Kirk Herbstreit acknowledge the fact that he went to Ohio State? I don't know. He may change networks. So, you know, there are a lot of those subplots relating to promotion. But make no mistake, you can't ignore the Big Ten, no matter how hard you try. And this is setting up for a titanic battle. Here's what I predict. Jimmy Pitaro, the president of ESPN, and the guys from Fox, Eric Shanks and otherwise, will finally emerge in a titanic cage match. The winner wins all the rights.
I think it will be very interesting to see what the TV companies do at the end. We'll see about that cage match, and maybe Rick Horrow can be the referee for such a cage match between TV executives. So let's talk money now, Mr. Horrow, because that's something you know very, very well. You mentioned that CBS time slot, the middle of the afternoon. Traditionally, the SEC on CBS, but starting maybe in 2023 or 2024, that will be the Big Ten on CBS, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, that midday window. And according to Andrew Marchand of the New York Post, that is valued right now for just that one single time slot, $350 million annually back to the Big Ten. So when you put all of these components together, Fox's partnership with the Big Ten Conference, NBC, rumors of Apple TV and a Friday night package, what do you think we are looking at as total revenue for the Big Ten Conference in their next TV deal?
Over $1 billion. And I do think at the end of the day, that's a starter. And you did throw in what I wanted to say and what everybody's doing, which is streaming. And Apple and, you know, all of the streaming stuff was thought of as an afterthought. NFL before DirecTV and otherwise. Now it's not an afterthought. It is a very important new window. It's an experimental window. You point out about a Friday night. If I'm high school football, I try to focus on maybe Thursday morning from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. because that may be the only time I don't have any competition anymore. Truthfully. It used to be leave Friday alone. No more.
Mm-hmm. It's a great point because Thursday night football is now the NFL's king, and that's Amazon Prime all of a sudden. And Friday night is becoming more of a college football night as those huge TV time slots need to be the utmost thing that these conferences look at. And Rick, earlier you mentioned Notre Dame and the Big Ten's potential new partnership with the NBC, which right now is the television home for Notre Dame Fighting Irish football. Their athletic director yesterday, Jack Swarbrick, mentioned how he considers the NBC's partnership with the Big Ten a very positive thing for Notre Dame. What do you think the Irish will do? Will they potentially join a conference or remain independent?
It is incredibly interesting and positive to give Jack Swarbrick and his predecessors the accolades of creating their own almost exclusive brand with NBC. Mike Tirico, Pat Hayden, Collinsworth, you know, cutting teeth on Notre Dame football. The fact that Jack Swarbrick, who, by the way, is a contributor to the book, a shameless plug, has also talked about how he can develop this whole process and maybe bring in, Notre Dame in. And if you don't think Notre Dame wants to expand their horizons for dollars, then you're wrong. How about the ACC? By the way, I'm taking us to break, so just calm down. You don't have to do anything else. So the bottom line of all this is just like Notre Dame and the ACC, they may do it in football. In just a couple minutes, we get the melodious tones of Ben Stevens back right.
Cut it.
Hi, folks. Medicare Part C plans with extra benefits like getting money added back to your Social Security check may now be available to you in your zip code. Make sure you're not missing out. It's simple. 1, call the number on your screen. 2, they'll look up your zip code and see if you're eligible. 3, they'll check for plans with extra benefits like prescriptions, dental coverage, and the benefit that adds money back to your Social Security check every single month. Call now.
I called to get everything I deserve.
I called to check my zip code for a plan with a benefit that adds money back to my Social Security check.
I called to check my zip code.
Millions of people have called the Medicare Coverage Helpline. Call, check your zip code, see if you're eligible, and get what you deserve. Call now.
Call 1-800-810-7576. That's 1-800-810-7576 now.
This is a paid advertisement for legal services. Attention. From 1953 to 1987, veterans and civilians were potentially exposed to toxic chemicals in the drinking water at Camp Lejeune. Exposure to these chemicals increases the risk for cancer and other health problems. If you or a loved one were diagnosed with a serious illness after being exposed to contaminated water at Camp Lejeune, you may be entitled to compensation.
Call Sokolov Law now at 1-800-327-4629. That's 1-800-327-4629.
If you or a loved one has mesothelioma or been diagnosed with another asbestos-related cancer, call now. An estimated $30 billion in court-ordered trusts have been set aside to pay out claims to asbestos victims. You may be able to receive compensation without ever going to court or filing a lawsuit. Thousands of hardworking men and women have been diagnosed with mesothelioma because manufacturers put profits ahead of safety. Manufacturers knew the risks of asbestos exposure for years, but knowingly manufactured and sold deadly asbestos-containing materials, putting millions of American workers at risk. These manufacturers have tried to avoid compensating their victims, but the courts have ordered them to set aside an estimated $30 billion in trust money for the victims of asbestos. Call now to see if you're entitled to a portion of the $30 billion. You could receive compensation without filing a lawsuit or going to court.
For your free legal consultation, call 800-268-1371. That's 800-268-1371. I'm a non-attorney spokesperson.
Attention! Do you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS? If so, you may qualify for the IRS Fresh Start program, so you won't have to make any payments to the IRS. That's right. If you qualify for the IRS's Fresh Start program, you won't make any IRS payments once you are accepted. Once you are in the IRS Fresh Start program, they must stop all harassing and threatening collection activities. Call Tax Relief today now at 800-382-1870 to see if you qualify. Again, 800-382-1870.
Just about 2.5 weeks away from the start of a new college football season in 2022. Week 0 is 2 weeks from Saturday. You can feel the excitement building on this Football Thursday, live right here on the Morning After on Sports Grid. I am Ben Stevens. Not only do I host the Morning After, I'm one of the co-hosts of Football Full Circle each and every weekday, live on the Sports Grid Radio Network starting at noon Eastern Time, alongside the mastermind of the pigskin, as I like to call him, our Sports Grid college football analyst, Joe Lisi, joins the show here on TMA. Lisi, scale of 1 to 10, how would you describe your excitement for college football in 2022?
About a 22, a 25. I can't wait, Ben. There's going to be unbelievable outcomes, fantastic finishes, and it starts, obviously, August 27th in Ireland with the big game between Northwestern and Nebraska. It doesn't get bigger than that in terms of conference game for Nebraska, and more importantly, all the pressure on Scott Frost and the Cornhuskers in 2022. This is what it's all about to kick off the 2022 season. So I'm psyched. Let's do it.
Lisi and I are already workshopping a take that if Scott Frost somehow has his Nebraska Cornhuskers lose that football game against Northwestern as a 12.5-point favorite in Aviva Stadium in Dublin, Ireland, that maybe Scott Frost just looks for greener pastures and goes and becomes a farmer on the Irish countryside and doesn't even board the plane back to Lincoln, Nebraska. But as of right now, the Huskers a 12.5-point favorite against Northwestern, and Nebraska has the second best odds to win the Big Ten West. But we'll keep the Big Ten out of this for right now, Joe. Significant news yesterday from the ACC. Winston-Salem and Wake Forest. Sam Hartman, the quarterback who led Wake Forest to an ACC Atlantic Divisional crown last year in an appearance in the conference championship game, has been sidelined indefinitely with a non-football related medical condition. Head coach Dave Clawson saying after practice yesterday, it is not expected to be season ending, which is the good news, but still scary stuff for the Demon Deacons entering 2022. Joe, how significant is this for Wake Forest in their outlook for this upcoming year?
Well, I think it's significant in the sense they lose their veteran offensive leader, right? For that team that averaged 41 points per game. He completed now 58% of his passes, Ben. 39 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, but Sam Hartman was one of the best passers in terms of the ACC last year, led Wake Forest to an ACC championship appearance. They're going to miss him in the early part of the season. Now, I will say this in terms of big picture for Wake Forest. I still think they can get to potentially a bowl game. I think the schedule is up against it this season compared to where it was last year, and Dave Clawson has done a fantastic job in terms of coaching up the offensive defensive lines. But more importantly, let's not forget, Sam Hartman was injured a couple of years ago at the end of the season and gave way to former Georgia Bulldog Jamie Newman that led the team 3-1 down the stretch. They made it to a bowl game in terms of that season. So Dave Clawson understands what's needed to get this team back on track. But when you lose a veteran leader such as Sam Hartman, the team's going to miss him. Michael Kern, only about 4 pass attempts. And I will say this in terms of just Wake Forest overall. I thought they would be a minor regression back to like 8-4 in that area because of the defense. They allowed over 400 total yards per game. And this might actually benefit, I hate to say it, but our Vanderbilt bet, which now is 2.5, they play Wake Forest in the early part of the season. So if there is going to be growing pains with the new quarterback, Michael Kern, expect it to be in the month of September as opposed to maybe October or November for the Demon Deacons.
Because Lisi and I co-host a radio show together each and every day, we formulate takes together. We are both on the over of Vandy's win total of 2.5 at plus 145 right now. Their third game of the regular season in that non-conference portion is against Wake Forest. Sam Hartman, from a stats perspective, shows his importance for the Demon Deacs. Last year, 39 passing touchdowns, 11 rushing scores, one of only 16 players in FBS college football history to have 50 or more scores in a single season and threw for more than 4,200 yards. And how significant is this? Well, at least from the odds perspective, the ACC championship market now off the board on FanDuel Sportsbook. The Atlantic Divisional odds now off the board on the FanDuel Sportsbook. That should show what Sam Hartman not only means to Wake Forest, but the bigger picture around the Atlantic Coast Conference as well. Joe, on Monday, we got our first preseason poll. Our top 25 rankings from the USA Today coaches poll of this year in college football. And only 2 group of 5 teams checked in that top 25. At number 22 in the country, Cincinnati. And rounding out the top 25, Houston in that 25th spot. Let's focus on Cincy first. Of course, a group of 5 team for the first time ever to make the college football playoff last year. That is what Cincinnati was able to accomplish. How do the Bearcats follow it up this year, Joe, in 2022?
Well, they're going to have to make up for 3 key losses, right? Des Ridder, that's with the Atlanta Falcons. Jerome Ford, they lose Pierce as well, but obviously Sauce Gardner, their big play lockdown corner. That's going to be the biggest loss for this defense that basically held opposing offenses right in the area of about 160 passing yards per game. Now, they get a big test early on against a big physical SEC offensive line in Arkansas. They're 7-point dogs. That is a good gauge to see where they're at from a physicality perspective because keep in mind, Ben, they allowed Brian Robinson in Alabama to rush for over 300 in that ballgame. So if they can contain KJ Jefferson, show well, I still think potentially they're a 9 or a 10-win football team, but expecting them to duplicate a 13-0 regular season and knock it off Notre Dame like they did last year. They have Indiana as well. I just don't see it. I think they're there at 10-2, possibly 9-3, but I don't think they're even in contention for a college football playoff appearance. And in terms of the AAC, right there with the conference odds, I give the edge to Gus Malzahn and UCF, Mikey Keene, John Rice Plumlee. I think they have a great value and a great core of talent with Isaiah Bowser at plus 250 on the board.
Joe, it is fascinating to see where Cincinnati and Houston and Central Florida all stack up from that odds perspective. As we showed you 2 graphics ago, to win a national championship, Cincinnati has better odds, long odds, mind you, 250 to 1, but better than the Cougs at 300 to 1, yet Houston is the favorite to win a conference championship at plus 200. But both Cincy and UCF only 50 cents behind. Houston has the benefit of not having to play either Cincy or UCF in the regular season on what would set up to be a path to that conference championship game. Cincinnati made it to the college football playoff a season ago. Houston, as we see with group of 5 teams in preseason polls, more of them at the end of the year than at the beginning. But we did, Joe, have 4 Big 12 teams in the initial preseason poll from the coaches' perspective. And both Cincy and Houston will be Big 12 teams at this point next summer, by the way. But the 4 teams as of right now, Oklahoma at the top, ranked number 9 in the country. Baylor, the reigning Big 12 champs, 10th. Oklahoma State, 11th. And despite one first-place vote to be the number 1 team in the land, Texas checks in at number 18. But still 4 Big 12 teams, Joe, in that top 20. How do you think the Big 12 conference plays out this season?
Well, I mean, this is an intriguing one, right? Because we saw Baylor and Oklahoma State come in basically out of nowhere and really shock the college football world. It was the best championship game. They're coming down to the final play on a 4th and goal. So I think when you look at this conference as a whole, yeah, you have the front runners, Oklahoma and Texas. I think Oklahoma State will be there. I expect Baylor to regress a little bit, and that's not a knock on Dave Aranda or Blake Shapen, their new quarterback, but they lose a ton of talent from an offensive perspective. And then the defensive leader for that team last year, Terrell, their linebackers now moved on to the NFL. I think they take a minor hit, so I think they're in the area of about 7-5, 8-4 overall, especially with Treston Edner and Abram Smith moving on. But I will say this, there's a couple of teams you got to keep an eye out in terms of longer odds. Iowa State with Matt Campbell, there's not a lot of expectations there. Xavier Hutchinson, big play wide receiver, all he does is coach up offense and defensive line play at 20 to 1. They could be live. And I'm buying into Joey McGuire. They paid every college and student athlete, right? 85 of them, 25 plus to come to Lubbock and play for Lubbock. I tell you, this program is headed in the right direction. Donovan Smith, in my opinion, wins the quarterback job. You have Rick Thompson and Taj Brooks there. This defense held 8 of 13 opponents under 100 yards rushing last year, Ben. 6-2 in those games. Keep an eye out for Texas Tech. They can be live week 3 against NC State. I'm in on this team. I think they're a 7 or an 8 win football team in 2022, and they could potentially surprise for maybe getting to the conference championship at 50 to 1.
Maybe not enough to get to that point, long odds at 50 to 1, but could disrupt things on that week-to-week basis in the Big 12. Didn't mention Texas. Are they not back, Joe? The second best price to win the conference championship. I guess we'll let that play out for the Longhorns this year in year number 2 of Steve Sarkisian. Quickly here, Joe, we just discussed it with Rick Horrow. The idea that Notre Dame might be trending toward the Big Ten. And if we looked at the odds right now, only Ohio State and Michigan out of that conference have better odds than the Irish to win a national championship in 2022. Only about 30 seconds left here, Lisi. How do you think Notre Dame would stack up as a Big Ten member?
I think they would play very well. Now, they're, from a defensive perspective, as good as a lot of the mediocre teams in there. Michigan State, Penn State, I think they can go toe-to-toe. Are they as elite as Ohio State from an offensive perspective? Absolutely not. But they could be live week 1.
Could be a conference matchup in the future. The Buckeyes a 15.5-point favorite. The first full Saturday of that college football season against Notre Dame. Joe Lisi, you are the mastermind of Pigskin for a reason. Thank you so much. More TMA up next.
If you've been injured in an accident that's not your fault and you don't have an attorney, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by to tell you what your case is potentially worth. Hello, I'm Gina, along with spokesperson Rob. Rob, tell the folks at home who should be calling right now.
Well, just like you said, Gina, anyone who's been injured in an accident that was not your fault, you don't have an attorney, give us a call right now, and we're going to let you know what your case is potentially worth.
Thanks, Rob. So what kind of calls have we been seeing today?
Well, Gina, we're getting calls from all types of accidents today. Work accidents, slip and falls, truck accidents, and most commonly, car accidents. So if you were injured in an accident that was not your fault, you don't have an attorney, take that first step, pick up that phone and give us a call. We're going to answer your questions, and we'll let you know how much money you can get for your accident.
Thanks, Rob. All right, folks at home, you heard it. Go ahead, don't hesitate, take that first step and call now.
Here's an important message from the Diabetes Solution Center. Diabetics understand all too well the pain of pricking your fingers. But now, by wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can immediately reduce your pain. It's easy to use and helps you make more accurate diabetes treatment decisions. If you are testing your blood sugar 4 or more times daily, injecting insulin 3 or more times daily, or using an insulin pump, call the Diabetes Solution Center right now.
Are you over the age of 50 and considering buying an annuity in the next 60 days? I have some important news for you. Don't buy an annuity until you understand the pros and cons of annuities. Call now for this free book on maximizing your income in retirement. Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers from leading financial firm J.D. Mellberg. That's right, free. This book reveals little-known truths about annuities in simple-to-understand terms. Grab a pen right now, because we're about to offer you this free book that unlocks the 5 little-known truths we believe baby boomers and seniors should know before buying an annuity, and it's free. Call 800-273-2815. As a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report. We researched numerous products and summarized rates and benefits of annuities, all from Silac Insurance Company. Call 800-273-2815. That's 800-273-2815. Call now.
You heard a screech outside at night, but you can't see what it is because there's not enough light. You need the Bionic Floodlight from Bell & Howell, the solar-powered, motion-activated, multi-directional floodlight, the versatile wireless, safety, security, and outdoor lifestyle light you'll love. And right now, it's yours for just $29.99, and the shipping is free. Order now, and we'll send a second Bionic Floodlight. Just pay a separate fee. Here's how to order.
Call 1-800-604-7066 or order online at bionicfloodlight.com.
Sports Grid Network.
Back right here on the morning after on Sports Grid. Yes, it is a football Thursday, but a big day in Major League Baseball. Hey, is this heaven? No, it's Iowa. In fact, it's Dyersville, Iowa. The Field of Dreams game tonight, and we'll break it down with our guy, Bert Murray, here on the morning after. An MLB insider for FanSided. He shares that insight with us each and every week, it feels like. He was all over the breaking news around the trade deadline and some more breaking news yesterday that we'll discuss in just a couple of moments. But Bert, first we welcome you to the morning after once again. How has the sleep been? You've been able to catch up on some rest following the trade deadline?
Thankfully, I have. That was probably the least amount of sleep I've ever gotten in a week span. And it took me probably a week to recover, but here we are now. We're in one piece. We're ready to go.
About a week after the trade deadline, which makes the breaking news yesterday out of Major League Baseball a little bit more peculiar. As you got the notice yesterday and were part of breaking this news, the Detroit Tigers have parted ways with general manager and vice president Al Avila, which is not necessarily surprising, Bert, because the Tigers have the 3rd worst record in the bigs right now, on track for their 6th straight losing season. But the timing of it is slightly weird. Why now, more than a week after the trade deadline?
Yeah, that was something that I had gotten a bunch of questions from people who have been following me. They're asking, why do this now after the trade deadline and after the MLB draft? And they thought now was the time to do it. And that was simply the reason. You can't blame them for doing that, because if you look at their past 7 years with Al Avila at the helm, it's been a consistent struggle. They've been rebuilding. This year, they finally proclaimed that they were finally out of that rebuild, and yet it's been more of the same, if not even worse, after they went out and signed Javier Baez, Eduardo Rodriguez. A lot of these guys are like high-priced deals. And now it gives them a head start on their search. About 2 months before the season ends, they can conduct a very thorough search, which is what they intend to do. They're going to look at external candidates, internal candidates, and try to find the best guy. And I'll tell you, that job, like, they got a lot of work to do, whoever they end up hiring, but that job becomes really appealing when you get to work with AJ Hinch. That I've heard from numerous candidates who are probably going to be in the mix for that job saying they want it strictly because of Hinch.
It will be something to follow throughout the rest of this regular season for Detroit, who are already focusing on this upcoming year in Major League Baseball. They are 43-69 straight up, 26 games below 500, and a loss yesterday to the Cleveland Guardians, who now, Bert, own the top spot in the American League Central. Over the last couple of weeks, we have seen constant changes in the odds board and in the divisional standings in the AL Central. Now it's the Guardians on top, a 1-game advantage over the Twins, 2.5 games in front of the White Sox. Bert, I ask you simply, who wins the American League Central when all is said and done?
Well, that's a great question. We can rule out the Tigers and the Royals from the get-go here. So at least we got that. But it's a 3-team race at this point. You look at the Guardians, the Twins, and the White Sox. They're all like evenly stacked up there in the odds. I still think it's going to come down to the Guardians or the Twins, just because the White Sox have not shown any reason to believe in them. And losing Tim Anderson for 6 weeks, if not more, is a huge blow to them. But I'll go with the Twins because I really liked what they did at the deadline here. They went out and acquired some pretty high-profile guys. Tyler Mahle, Jorge Lopez were their 2 big additions, and that was probably the most active deadline they've ever had. And the Guardians, they had a very odd deadline. Like, they were both trying to buy and sell. Like, they were getting a lot of phone calls about their starting pitchers, like Zach Plesac, Shane Bieber. They ultimately didn't do anything there, but I love what the Twins did, and investing in that team when you have Carlos Correa and some other guys, I think that is the tipping factor for me and why I believe they'll end up winning the division.
Yeah, and ultimately right now, one of the reasons Cleveland was probably a little bit stale at the deadline, they have one of the youngest clubhouses in Major League Baseball trying to figure out what they're doing, but at the moment, a 1-game lead in the American League Central and the favorites, but as you saw from the odds, all 3 of those teams, the Guardians, the Twins, the White Sox, not only within just 2.5 games of one another, but within 45 cents of one another from that odds perspective. And most likely, Bert, it's only one team out of the American League Central, whoever the divisional champ is, because the AL wild card right now is dominated by teams from the American League East, yes, even including the Baltimore Orioles. Despite the fact the O's and the Blue Jays postponed yesterday, right now, the American League wild card standings, Toronto owns the top spot, then the Seattle Mariners, and the Rays and the Orioles tied for that 3rd and final AL wildcard spot. Bert, can the Baltimore Orioles actually do it? Can the Baltimore Orioles play postseason baseball?
I'll tell you, I won't rule anything out, my friend. Like, that, to me, is the biggest surprise of this season. Like, what the Orioles have been able to do. They entered the season with no expectations whatsoever, and yet they've cruised. They even sold at the deadline. They traded Jorge Lopez and Trey Mancini, and yet they're still playing extremely good baseball. I know there was a tweet from one insider. I think it might have been Bob Nightingale, who said that the Orioles waved the white flag, and then it's been anything but that. And if there's anything that we've learned so far, it's not to rule them out. Like, they may not be like the biggest favorite to actually advance to the wild card, but I mean, what they've been able to do now, I'm not going to rule them out. But they got competition here from the Rays. Red Sox are now out of it, which that's a shocker to me. But I think the Orioles have as good a chance as any team in that race right now. Like, I think they're doing a very good job here.
The O's have won 12 of 18 games, a 12-6 straight-up record since the All-Star break, have been booked as an underdog in 12 of 18 games, and the best run line record, so tons of profitability on Baltimore all year long at 72-38 on that run line. And that odds market continues to work in Baltimore's favor, 85-1 earlier this morning, a shift in the odds now 60-1. The Rays have moved back to 25-1. The Blue Jays are 7-1, and the Mariners slightly moving up the board, 13-1, following another victory over the Yankees last night out in the Pacific Northwest. So from the American League, Bert, we go to the National League. The New York Mets have won 6 straight games. They are 73-39 straight up. They would be the hottest team in baseball if it were not for the hottest team in baseball, the best team in baseball, the Los Angeles Dodgers. 77-33 straight up this year, riding a 10-game win streak. But Bert, you see how close they are in the odds, not only in the National League, but in the World Series market as well. Do you consider where we stand right now in early August that the Dodgers and the Mets are equals in terms of hunting down that National League pennant?
I'm going to say the Dodgers have the slight advantage here just because they've been in this position before, and this is the team that everybody is trying to catch. Like, we saw what the Padres did at the deadline, acquiring Juan Soto, Josh Bell, Brandon Drury, and all those guys. Their goal was to catch the Dodgers. And yeah, what the Mets have done this year has been extremely impressive, but this is their first year truly in this position under Steve Cohen, and I think they need to catch the Dodgers. And what we ended up seeing, as I mentioned with the Padres additions, getting all those players, they faced the Dodgers almost immediately after, and then the Dodgers just stuck it to them. The Dodgers are in a class of their own right now. I am very curious to see what a 7-game playoff series would be like between the Dodgers and the Mets, strictly because the Mets, I think, have the pitching with DeGrom and Scherzer, among others, to take them down. But right now, I have to go with the Dodgers just because they've had this sustained period of success for so long here.
And there is still that slight advantage for the Dodgers in the National League pennant odds as well. The favorites at plus 160. The Mets behind by only 60 cents, but still the second best price at plus 220. All right, we turn our attention to the most wonderful atmosphere you can see in baseball. Dyersville, Iowa. The Field of Dreams movie set for the Field of Dreams game tonight between the Reds and the Cubs. And Bert, despite the fact that Chicago is 20 games below 500 and Cincinnati is 22 games below 500, it still feels fun to have this Field of Dreams game tonight where the Reds, a slight money line favorite, by 8 cents right now at minus 112, the Cubbies minus 104. Let's start from an atmosphere perspective. As a baseball aficionado yourself, how much are you looking forward to this evening for the Field of Dreams game?
You know, I think it might be the coolest atmosphere you could ever ask for in a regular season game. You watch that, you get the guys coming out of the cornfields, the atmosphere, it's movie-like. I mean, it is a movie.
Yep.
And the fact that we get to do this now on a yearly basis, I think is extremely cool. Although, while the thing is these two teams are not very good, it's still a very, I don't know. It's a cool thing for baseball. It's a great way of marketing the game. But that being said, I thought baseball could have marketed this game more because I was asked by a lot of different people recently, is a Field of Dreams game going to happen? We've hardly seen any commercials or anything like that for it. I thought that was a little disappointing, but still, the fact that we're doing this on an annual basis, I think is great.
Yeah, last year it felt like there was a little bit more buildup for the Field of Dreams game. It was a lone event. There wasn't preseason football happening on the same night, and it was the Yankees and the White Sox. And the buildup matched what we actually saw on the diamond. If you remember, Tim Anderson, a 2-run walk-off homer for the White Sox to beat the Yankees last year at the Field of Dreams game, 9-8. And now we have the Cubs and the Reds. Nothing away from those two storied franchises, which matches up with the history of the Field of Dreams game, but maybe not the best product on the field. The starting pitching matchup that we have tonight, Bert, Drew Smyly for Chicago, Nick Lodolo for the Cincinnati Reds, and there are K-props available for this evening. From what we will see on the actual diamond, how do you think these two starters stack up this evening?
Yeah, it's a case where with a guy like Smyly, he's just coming off an injury. He's somebody that there's a lot of teams that are around the league who are really high on. So I think that, to me, I would end up going with Smyly in this case, just because I like the upside there. But yeah, I'll tell you, it's not like the high profile matchup like we saw last year with the White Sox and the Yankees, but still, I as I said before, I think I favor Smyly a little bit in this case.
And it is in prime time tonight. You should enjoy it as you watch your preseason football, and you will hear me say this at least 37 more times today. Hey, is this heaven? No, it's Iowa. That's what we love about the Field of Dreams game, and that total of 9.5, I would lean the over, given a small ballpark and what we saw last year from that offensive production perspective. Quickly here, Bert, the two most competitive divisions right now in Major League Baseball, the Centrals. We already broke down the American League Central, but right now in the NL Central, the Cardinals maintain a one-game lead over the Milwaukee Brewers. I asked you simply who wins the American League Central. It's the same question for the NL side of things. Who wins, the Cardinals or the Brewers?
I'll give you a much more confident answer on this one. I'll give you the St. Louis Cardinals. What they did at the deadline and addressing their needs in the rotation, getting Jordan Montgomery for Harrison Bader, which I think was one of the most surprising trades because there was no whispers that Bader was available at all. I think it addressed their biggest need, and they still have the outfield depth to field a very capable outfield. I thought that was a very by them. And then the Brewers, they traded Josh Hader. That was a move that I hinted at on the morning of, or the day before at least. And everything that I've heard from that clubhouse was that it was floored. And we got to see it even with the Devin Williams video at the top of the trade. So I'll go with the Cardinals. Sure.
I like the pick, Burke. I like the confidence. Thank you for everything, as always. More TMA next.
Are you over 50? Would you like to get up to 33% more income in retirement? Then call now for this free book, Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers, from a leading financial firm on maximizing your income in retirement. That's right, free. This free book reveals little-known secrets about annuity strategies in simple-to-understand terms that will help you make the right choices before buying an annuity. And it's free. Call right now for your free book, and as a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report. We researched over 1,200 annuities and summarized the rates and benefits of annuities from financially strong insurers. Again, that's Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers and a free annuity rate report, both absolutely free, for calling Annuity General today. Supplies are limited. Call now.
Call 800-830-7360. That's 800-830-7360.
I'm calling in regards about my mother, and I'm here, and I just want to thank you because it saved my mother's life yesterday. And I'd like to know the names of the people that came in and saved her. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
With Life Alert, one touch of a button can get you help fast.
For a free Life Alert brochure, call 1-800-450-0515. 1-800-450-0515.
If you've been injured in an accident that's not your fault and you don't have an attorney, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by to tell you what your case is potentially worth. Hello, I'm Gina, along with spokesperson Rob. Rob, tell the folks at home who should be calling right now.
Well, just like you said, Gina, anyone who's been injured in an accident that was not your fault, you don't have an attorney, give us a call right now, and we're going to let you know what your case is potentially worth.
Thanks, Rob. So what kind of calls have we been seeing today?
Well, Gina, we're getting calls from all types of accidents today. Work accidents, slip and falls, truck accidents, and most commonly, car accidents. So if you were injured in an accident that was not your fault, you don't have an attorney, take that first step, pick up that phone and give us a call. We're going to answer your questions, and we'll let you know how much money you can get for your accident.
Thanks, Rob. All right, folks at home, you heard it. Go ahead, don't hesitate, take that first step and call now.
You heard a screech outside at night, but you can't see what it is because there's not enough light. You need the Bionic Floodlight from Bell & Howell, the solar-powered motion-activated multi-directional floodlight, the versatile wireless, safety, security, and outdoor lifestyle light you'll love. And right now, it's yours for just $29.99, and the shipping is free. Order now, and we'll send a second Bionic Floodlight. Just pay a separate fee. Here's how to order.
Call 1-800-604-7066 or order online at bionicfloodlight.com.
Sports Grid.
We round out a football Thursday. Our 2 hours together here on the morning after, live all across the Sports Grid Radio Network, and that's Sirius XM, channel 159, and wherever you've been watching on this Thursday as well, including now Fubo TV. Welcome to Bleeding the Winning Edge right here on the Grid. I am Ben Stevens. Thank you for joining us on this football Thursday. It is called a football Thursday because we have 2 NFL games tonight to kick off preseason week number 1 in the National Football League. In Foxborough, the Patriots, a 2.5-point home underdog against the New York Giants. And a preseason powerhouse, the Baltimore Ravens, plays host to the Tennessee Titans. Right now, the Flock, a 3.5-point favorite. So how can we get in? What action can we get on NFL preseason football? Before we say farewell and before we say goodbye, we'll have that exact conversation and do a little math here for you as we get ready for bye. I don't just call the Baltimore Ravens a preseason powerhouse for no reason. They have won 20 straight preseason games. They have not lost a preseason contest since 2015. And under John Harbaugh, their head coach, Baltimore is 42-10 straight up and 37-15 against the spread. They are a 3.5-point favorite tonight. Last year, of course, perfect in the preseason, winning all 3 games. Their average margin of victory was 18 points per game, where they scored at least 17 in all 3 of those games. I did the math. Over the last 3 preseasons for the Baltimore Ravens, in a sample size of 11 games, they averaged just shy of 26 points per game. And if we do the quick math, okay, Baltimore, a 3.5-point favorite. The total is 32.5. The team total is not out yet, but you can estimate it somewhere around 17 and a hook. So that's the play. Baltimore over its team total when it is posted on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Hopefully it is so. And if not, just lay the points with the Flock, because why not? They're a preseason power. That does it for the morning after today on Sports Grid. It's each and every weekday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm Ben Stevens. Dubs Anderson filling in tomorrow. They'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern. Talk to you then.